This was in November 2018. I was a 19-year-old woman living alone in a 2-bedroom apartment. I live in a college town that has a significant population but a low crime rate. This kind of thing just doesn't happen here. Or so I thought. I came home one night after hanging out with my girlfriend, a little intoxicated, and I set my keys on my kitchen counter. I lose my keys often, so I told myself at least 10 different times, the keys are on the counter, before stumbling off to bed. I woke up at around 8 AM the next morning and cleaned my kitchen a little bit before getting ready for an appointment I had. While I was getting ready to head out of the door, I realized my keys were missing from the counter. I searched my apartment up and down, but I couldn't find them, so I decided to take an Uber so as not to miss my appointment. On my way home, I called my mum and told her about my missing keys. She has a talent for knowing where lost things might be. She suggested that I search my trash because I might have accidentally thrown them away while cleaning. As soon as I walked back into my apartment, my stomach sank. My apartment smelled absolutely disgusting. A scent that I don't think I can accurately describe or put words to. It was revolting. And something felt off. I thought it might be because I had dishes in the sink that I hadn't washed for a couple of days. So I took the time to wash my dishes and then decided to search the trash for my keys. I put on some rubber gloves and laid out trash bags on my living room floor, then dumped my trash on top of them and started searching. What I found was completely revolting. There was a bag of bird feathers, a pair of soaking wet socks, a clump of grey hair, and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which I hate with a passion, so I knew it wasn't mine. At this point I was panicking, so I snapped a picture and texted it to my girlfriend before calling her. Hello? Amy, I think there is someone hiding in my apartment. I came home and found stuff in my trash that I know isn't mine. It smells weird, and I just have a bad feeling. I was on the verge of tears, my anxiety through the roof. Babe, she sighed, clearly annoyed. This is just your anxiety talking. I doubt there is anyone in your apartment. Maybe someone used your trash when you had the Friendsgiving party. Ask your friends who were there. I knew her explanation didn't really make sense, all things considered, but I wanted to believe them anyways. I smiled and laughed a little bit before responding. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm being unreasonable. Per usual, right? She replied, you should get your mind off things if your anxiety is this bad. Come to dinner with me and my parents tonight. Take a shower, I'll pick you up. We're going somewhere a little fancier, so wear something nice. Sure, I'd love to. I love you. I hung up the phone and walked to my bathroom, grabbing a towel and taking off my jeans and underwear before throwing it all in the dryer so it could be warm when I got out of the shower. Since my apartment had 2 bedrooms, and I was the only person living there at the time, I used the spare bedroom to store my laundry and fancier clothes. It was nearing finals week, so I hadn't done my laundry for a minute, and there was a giant pile of dirty clothes on the floor of that room. All of my fancier sweaters and dresses were hanging in the closet. Still completely butt naked, I headed to the spare bedroom to grab a sweater for dinner with Amy's family. As soon as I opened the door, the bad smell became 100 times worse, to the point I thought I was going to pass out. I carefully stepped inside and then froze completely, noticing a large tattooed hand sticking out of the pile of laundry. As a completely naked 19-year-old girl who walked in on a stranger in her apartment, the reasonable thing to do would have been to calmly leave the room, get dressed, go outside, and call 911. However, my immediate reaction was to scream at the top of my lungs. What the fuck? Who are you? What are you doing in my apartment? I shrieked, tears streaming down my face. My entire body was filled with terror. I felt like I couldn't move. A large, clearly drugged up woman jumped out of the pile of clothes and faced me, screaming, I have a gun and I will kill you! Don't you dare call the police! I forced myself to move, sprinting to the bathroom and grabbing my phone on the counter as I did. I slammed the door behind me and locked it, falling to my knees on the floor. Police terrify me, and so was this woman threatening me if I called them. So against my better judgment, I dialed my dad's number with shaky hands. Meanwhile, this woman was banging on the door, shrieking and threatening me. My dad answered. Hello? Let me in! Don't you dare call the police, you bitch! I will fucking kill you! She screamed, continuing to pound on the door. Dad, There's someone in my apartment. I'm not kidding. Do you hear her? She's trying to fucking kill me. Help!" The woman continued to bang on the door. "You stupid bitch. I've been here for 3 fucking days now. I will fucking kill you." My dad responded, "Angela, what are you doing calling me? Call 911 now." I hung up the phone and took his advice, dialing 911 as fast as I could. As soon as the woman heard me speaking to the operator, she ran outside, slamming the front door behind her. As I explained what was going on, I got dressed and tried to run outside to see which way she had gone. When she ran out, she took her trash with her. When the police got there, they asked me for a description of the woman, and we searched my apartment to see if she had taken anything besides the trash. Unsurprisingly, she took all of my prescription drugs for anxiety and ADHD. That was fun to explain to my doctor. Besides that, the cops were essentially useless. There was never any follow-up, and as far as I know, they never found her. I moved into my parents' house for a few weeks until I could find a new apartment, and I couldn't even enter the building until about a week later. I threw away everything hygiene related in case she had used it: toothbrush, hairbrush, menstrual cup, etc., and sanitized everything, especially my clothes. While searching that spare bedroom, I found notebooks filled with crazy writings of black witchcraft, dirty underwear, 3 pairs of car keys that belonged to God knows who, and a ton of food trash. I turned it all in to the police. I ended up moving into a 3rd-story apartment, installing automatic keypad locks and security cameras, getting a cat so I felt less alone, and going to therapy because the situation caused me such intense anxiety. For 6 months I couldn't enter my apartment if I'd been gone for more than 5 minutes unless I was on the phone with someone, and I had to search the entire place top to bottom before I'd feel comfortable enough to sit down. I also still occasionally get nightmares, or swear I can smell that smell again. I grew up in Ohio in the 70s, and me and my childhood friend Joe were outside all the time we could manage it. Joe lived on a farm that bordered a pretty big forest, and my parents would drop me off in the morning and would stay out in the woods all weekend. We'd only come out for school. We loved pretending we were frontiersmen. We'd build shelters, traps, practice making fire with sticks, the whole 9 yards. When we got to be in high school, we got this notion to pull a Stand By Me. This was based on the movie of the same name that had just come out. The idea was that we'd walk the railroad tracks out in the country, but instead of looking for a dead body, we'd find cool bridges to fish from and camp a little ways off the tracks. Of course we knew this was dangerous, and we'd likely be trespassing, but we were kids. We had a lot of fun. We did find beautiful rivers, we discovered bridges no one went to, we fished, we hid from trains. At night we camped in woods just near the tracks and made small hidden fires. Nothing bad ever happened. It was idyllic. In fact, it was so fun, we did it multiple times, never had a problem. After high school, me and Joe went our own ways. We both left home, but always stayed in touch and always tried to coordinate visits so we'd see each other occasionally. Well, one summer in the mid-90s, it worked out that we were both in town for about a week. We'd do stuff with family in the day, and at night we'd either catch drinks at a bar or sit outside Joe's house around a fire and talk about the old days. One night, me and Joe got to talking about our Stand By Me trips. Well, nostalgia and beer are a hell of a mix. Soon, we decided to take a day, walk the rails, camp one night and walk home. The day came, we started out early morning. We had my wife drop us off in our old spot where we used to start, right outside our hometown. She thought this was absolutely crazy and made sure to mention it. When she pulled away, Joe suggested that instead of walking the usual route, we'd take the opposite direction, just to be adventurous. We knew the land well, we had a map, so I gave her, "What the hell," and off we set. The day went fine. It was fun, and a little sad, but in a good way. We found a bridge and sat on the edge, smoked a joint and moved on. We had no fishing gear, but we brought some canned food and other stuff. Before night started to set in, we picked a spot to camp. It was a thick forested area, trees on every side of the train tracks, so you felt like you were in a tunnel. We had brought small hammocks to sleep on, but before we set them up, we decided to do a little scouting of the perimeter. Now this is what we used to do in the old days too. We'd walk the area around a little bit to make sure some dude's house wasn't just over a hill and we were actually camping in their yard. We walked maybe 100 or so feet into the woods and up a small incline. We figured if we didn't see anything from on top of the short hill, we'd be fine. But when we got to the top, we saw an old building down at the bottom, about 100 yards into the woods. It was barely visible. We pondered over what to do. We both assumed it was a sugar shack or something, because there didn't appear to be a clear road into it. From where we were, there didn't look to be anyone in it either. All was quiet, no movement could be seen, no lights. We decided to walk a little closer just to make sure. We came down the hill very slowly, and as we neared the building, we saw it wasn't a sugar shack at all. It was an old church. It looked like it had been abandoned for years. It was a squat, sagging building whose wooden planks were almost black from years of moss and rot. A cross still stood on top of the place, also weathered black. None of the windows had glass and there were no doors, just open doorways. We got close enough to see inside. There were rows of pews and a built-up section in front for a preacher to stand. We didn't go all the way in. We didn't want to. Beyond all that, there was no sign of anyone else. No footprints, no paths, no roads. It was an abandoned church. We left immediately and went back up the hill to our spot we had picked to camp. Having a hill between us and the church made us feel better, but we were still a little uneasy. We chalked it up to the natural creepiness seeing a church in the middle of the woods would elicit. Besides, at this point it was dusk, and we just decided to rig up our hammocks and go to sleep and move on at early morning. Night set in, and as we lay in our hammocks and shot the shit, we began to hear something in the direction of the church. Our conversation about it went a little like this. Do you hear that? What the fuck is that? It sounds like people singing, and it did sound just like singing. We both slid right out of our hammocks and hunkered down, straining to hear more. We listened for a minute or two, and the singing continued, but it wasn't getting louder. Finally, we decided to creep back up the hill and see if we could spy where the sound was coming from. We could still move very quietly in the woods from the old days. It was second nature to us. The moon was barely out, but it provided enough light so you wouldn't walk right into a tree, but it was near pitch black. We didn't use flashlights as we crept slowly up the hill, and we didn't talk. When we got to the top, we saw light in the distance. It was coming from the church, and the singing was coming from inside. Joe and I put our heads close together and had a hushed conversation that boiled down to, can you believe this shit? The light looked to be candlelight from the way it flickered, and though we tried, we couldn't make out what was being sung. It sounded like church music, but in another language. We sat and watched for a while, trying to see who was in there, but we only saw occasional shadows. We had no intention of getting closer either. We had about a football field length between us, and we aimed to keep it that way. The singing continued for a bit, and then it stopped. After that, a booming male voice began to chant. I was already freaked out, but this voice thoroughly scared the shit out of me. It sounded like some Old Testament preacher you'd see in movies, but again, it was like he was speaking in a different language because we couldn't understand a single word. Eventually it got to where the single male voice would say something and then a bunch of voices would answer in song. This lasted for a while, and then they all broke into this long, sustained wail that just kept getting louder. It got so loud and so disturbing that I covered my ears. Then it stopped. At this point, I was just getting ready to say, let's get the fuck out of here, when Joe put a hand on my shoulder and hissed, they're coming out. We were far away enough that we couldn't make them out really well, but what we could see was a line of figures walk out the open doorway, all holding hands in single file. We could see some of them had flashlights. They began to sing again, and the light from the flashlights began to move towards us and the hill. We booked it back to our campsite, grabbed our shit and ran to the tracks. Once there, we ran down the tracks in the direction we had come from. After a few minutes, we stopped and looked back. We saw lights coming down the hill. They were moving erratically, like whoever was holding them was shaking them. We continued to run in spurts and walk as fast as we could. We eventually stopped seeing the lights and came to a road. By our map, we knew a small town was about 15 minutes down it, and we walked there, got to a 24-hour gas station and called my wife to come get us. My wife and other friends all thought it was kids messing around, but I heard those voices and they sure as hell didn't sound like kids to me. Not sure who those people were, but it was definitely the creepiest thing that ever happened to me out in those woods. So I live in an apartment complex right next to a 7-Eleven, literally a 2-minute walk from my door. So since all this quarantine lockdown mess, I've been staying up later than usual, till maybe 2 or 3 AM most nights. Last night, a little bit after 12, I had a taste for some chips and decided I'll just go across the street to 7-Eleven, which I go to regularly. So I make my way over, and on my way in I had to pass this man who was browsing on the red box kiosk. I don't think much of it. I go inside, get some snacks, pay, head out the door. As I'm coming out, the red box man is literally staring dead at me with these scarily bright light blue eyes. But not wanting to freak myself out even more, I say to myself, maybe he's zoned out and in deep thought. I wander into La La Land myself sometimes, so by thinking that, I was trying to make myself more comfortable having to walk past this strange man. So I'm headed back into my apartment complex, which on this side of the street has a creaky gate door. I realised as I'm walking, I never heard it slam behind me like I always have before. I look back and this man is right behind me, not close up on me, but still, definitely following. Once again trying to ease my mind, I'm thinking he must be going home, but I also noticed he didn't have any disc in his hand, for as much as he was at the kiosk the whole time I was in the store, taking my sweet indecisive time. So, not wanting to come off as scared, I keep my same pace, but I probably should have sprinted because fuck being nice. Anyways, I'm literally just a few steps away from my door, which is upstairs, and the man randomly calls out to me, "Hey, do you have a lighter?" Out of instinct, I turned my head to the fact I knew someone was speaking to me and responded, "No, I don't, sorry." I didn't want to just go up my stairs, because I didn't want to let this man know exactly which apartment I live in, so I was planning on walking around until I lost him, but he asked me another question. "Could I use your bathroom?" I tell him, "No, sorry, my roommates wouldn't be comfortable with me letting someone in this late. I don't have roommates, but I damn sure didn't want this man getting any ideas thinking I was by myself." I keep walking, but this man was still following me. I simply ask, "Do you live around here?" And he tells me, "I have a buddy that does, and he was supposed to meet me across the way there, but maybe he fell asleep. I never been here before, but I do know his door is number 201. Could you help me find it?" 201 is my door, and if you have a friend that lives over here, why are you asking to use my bathroom? I knew this man was lying and up to something. I quickly came up with, 201? That should be right past the pool, right next to the laundry area. My friends are waiting for me, so I should get going. My gut told me to head to my car though, because what if he watched where I was going and decides to give me a surprise later on? No. I watch too many movies and read too many stories uploaded on Reddit. So I start heading towards the parking lot, not running but definitely walking quicker than before, when I realise the man is chasing me at this point. I hurry up and pull my keys out of my pocket and get in my car and immediately lock the doors. The man starts pounding on my driver window, telling me to "Open the door, bitch!" I can't help but focus on those creepy blue eyes, but I also notice he was reaching for his pocket. I start up my car before I can see what it is he's going to pull out. I heard a pop, but I didn't give a fuck at that moment, as long as I could get the fuck out of his presence. I drove maybe 5 minutes down the street to this Arco gas station and called the police. Waiting on the police to arrive, I noticed what the popping sound was. This wacko popped my back tyre with a switchblade. Of course, when the police arrived and went to check the area, the motherfucker was gone. They did question the 7-Eleven clerk, and he let them know that that man has been up there a few times since last week, and never has been a problem, but is obviously homeless. I'm still shook up about what went on last night, and I'm going to chill on the late night trips to 7-Eleven for a while. To the fucked up Redbox man, let's not meet again. But if we do, I have a taser for you on its way from Amazon. Try me.
Would you run? Would you fight? Or would you be frozen in place, devoured by fear? Imagine yourself in these specific scenarios. How will your instincts make you act? Write your answer in the comment section below. Were you captivated by these stories? Consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell if your curiosity craves to hear more true, chilling reports recovered from the dark road. If you have a personal true story you'd like to share, please send it to the email address in the description.